Was the stupidest thing you've seen a new inmate do on his first day in prison? Just going to generalize. Small town folk who are used to being the biggest and baddest. Big fish small pond types who think they are going to be king when they walk in. They usually are dominated pretty quickly. Dominated being either beat or made into a bitch. Best bet if you go to prison, hopefully no one never goes, is unless you know someone well connected on the inside. Just keep your head down, focus on yourself, and do your time. It's going to be boring, menial, and seemingly endless, but you don't want to get caught up in any gang stuff or be snitching. There's a code and system in prison that needs to be followed, and if you walk in like king shit of Turd Hill when you are a nobody, you will learn real quick that you ain't nothing. He dropped the soap. Everyone was laughing at him. For the rest of his stint, the rest of the inmates called him Klutz. It all worked out for him though. He moved to Canada and started an extremely popular tech tips YouTube channel. So my dad's currently convicted, and the craziest story he's told me is one of the newer inmates was young and arrogant. Always spouting off bullshit about how unaccountable he was. Then one day, another inmate packed up his items, went into the younger inmate's cell and tried to strangle him. The younger inmate was that fucking annoying. He survived. The attempted murderer is in Max, and when the younger inmate came back from the hospital he was still spouting bullshit. Goofy looking kid, curly hair, thick glasses. He comes in and for some reason he befriends me. He starts telling me what he did, sexual assault if a minor. I told him not to be telling nobody that shit because it'll get you in trouble. The rest of that day and the next, I bailed out. By then, I could hear him from across the hall telling other people. Not surprised if he's been kicked around a few times. Pretty much just hearing younger guys like trying to impress. Odds are if you're a real G then you can tell who's who. The ones who get caught lying are the ones who have the hardest time because trust level is low to begin with, include lies and yay. I'd say this is mostly for JDCs, but county jails and prisons have the same problem, I'm sure. Saw in one of those jail documentaries, young man about 18. Had no gangs affiliation of any kind, was in for some kind of minor crimes. Decides to try to impress the Nazi people by lifting weights with them. He tries to do leg presses, turns out he couldn't even lift 100 pounds and barely got any reps done. The whole Nazi gang laugh at him while he was doing it. Admit that he was in for sexual assault and being a pedo. And then it was about 8 PM and we found out he was a chronic masturbator and he would not stop jacking off in his bunk. He was 22. And it was jail, not prison, so at that moment, we had maybe 12 to 15 people in our cell. Some guy woke up from a nap and thought he was having a seizure, so he went to go check on him. What a goddamn shock they both had. Edit, spelling and grammar. Told a kid there was a pool out at yard. Guard saw him waiting to go out in shorts with his shower towel and asked him what he was doing. Kid said, "I'm gonna go swimming outside, it looks nice." Don't think I've laughed so hard in my life. It's unoriginal but always funny. Not prison, but I was in Juvenile Hall. This was in Minnesota, and racial division isn't as strong up here, so even though I was half white half Hispanic, since I was loosely affiliated with a blood gang, I was allowed to walk with the black guys in there, but I mostly kept my mouth shut and only got into fights when someone put hands on me. So this big black dude comes in for assault, and since he was a Crip he was beefing with the group I was in, and he starts talking shit about how our group was weak for having a white kid in it, and took shots at me. He got cocky and started pushing me around, so I pushed him back, and then he tried to tackle me, but I got him in a front face lock and kicked my legs back to drag him down, and as soon as I had him locked down I started pushing my fist into his throat to choke him out. Eventually we got broken up by 2 guards and NGL. I was fucking terrified, but he got made fun of so much for losing to me, not only because I was white but he was bigger than me, that he immediately lost credibility after that. This may not have been his first day, but I will never forget this. This while I was in the intake tank, which is the first tank or section you go into after being processed in county. This young kid comes into county and keeps complaining that he doesn't get his cannabinol and other marijuana-related prescriptions in jail. He was really arrogant and constant pissing everyone off. During count one day as we were all in our bunks he starts complaining again and then says to the guard, what if we all riot immediately like 10 other guys yell very loudly we don't know, or agree with him. The guard then says, what the fuck did you say? The kid then continues about rioting and that he has rights. Everyone in the tank fucking stays like frozen in their bunk trying their best to be non-threatening and also show they have no interest in what this moron is saying. So the guard picks him up by his throat and slams him into the wall. After scaring the kid shitless, he explains he has a new charge for inciting a riot. Kid gets hauled off to solitary. Never saw him again, but I heard he spent the rest of his 30, 60, 90 whatever amount days in solitary. Absolutely insane to me that he'd say that in a fucking county jail. I got bunk restriction while I was in jail on one of my first night. Twice a day they did roll call where we all had to sit on our bunk, be quiet while the officer came bunk to bunk and checked all of our wristbands and made sure we were all who we are. Halfway through he was doing this, someone rips the loudest, fattest, longest wet fart I've ever heard in my life. Me having the mind of a 5-year-old burst into laughter. I've never heard a fart like this in my life. A few other guys laugh, but even thinking of it now I giggle about it. Anyways, the officer is like, alright, settle down, but I can't stop laughing about it. He tells me to calm down, but I tell him through my tears of laughter I literally cannot help it. I really couldn't. It was the funniest thing that happened the few days I was in there. Anyway, he gets pissed. I try to explain I'm not trying to be rude and disobey him through my laughter, but he isn't having it. Luckily he just gave me bunk restriction and didn't punish everyone, but I could see the TV from my bunk, so I just hung out the rest of the night. TL doctor, I couldn't stop laughing at the biggest fart I ever heard in my life and got grounded to my bunk for a night.